12th, 2021, and this is a regular monthly meeting of the Baltimore City Board of Ethics. My name is Stephen Fogelman. I'm chair, and you need to know that there is a possibility that the board may need to close some or all of this meeting to preserve the confidentiality maintained by the Ethics Code or is otherwise authorized by the State Open Meetings Act. Likewise, upon adjournment of the open session, the board may reconvene for an administrative session to discuss non-public administrative functions of the board. In that regard, per the Open Meetings Act, the board discloses that it adjourned its virtual open meeting on April 14th, 2021 to enter into an administrative session at approximately 3:14 p.m. All board members except member Hengerer were present. Members discussed administrative matters, including late fees, advisory opinions, and a secondary employment request. So with that, I would move that we move straight to new business.
Second.
So can I get a second? All in favor of moving straight to new business, say aye.
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 Okay. So the first item up, and we have a guest here. We don't want to keep them waiting. A solicitation application on behalf of the Baltimore Development Corporation and Emerging Technology Centers. So,
and
Jeff?
I have one thing to add. In addition to the materials that I sent you all, I had asked an additional question related to the fiscal sponsor, and the executive assistant for the Baltimore Development Corporation affirmed that Marshall Financial, who's sort of the funds manager for BDC, is actually the fiscal sponsor for the funds coming in for ETC as well. So I think
Financial is only working with ETC. I don't believe they work with BDC.
Okay, yeah. If you want to tell us a little more about that, that'd be fine.
Thank you.
Right. So I'm Deb Tillett, and I'm the president of ETC. And many years ago, when I first started, we had an employee vice president who was skilled in financial, and he was the one who managed our funds and checking and, all of that kind of stuff. Well, he retired, and when he did, we didn't hire to replace him per se, and we went to an outsourced CFO who is a separate company, Marshall Financial Services, and they manage all of our billing, all of our accounting, the dispersion of funds based on an invoice. And so they are independent of us, but under our direction.
Okay.
Are there any other modifications or changes to the materials that have been presented to the Ethics Board and the Board of Estimates?
No, they are as submitted.
All right. Any discussion, questions? All right, I hear no questions or discussion, so I will.
I just have one quick question as a matter of course, just to make sure we dot our I's and cross all our T's. Thank you so much, Deb, for joining us. And this is just a question that I feel like I have to ask. Not that I have a concern about it, but on your application number 4, you indicate that any unused funds are normally held for future use. Do you anticipate having unused funds? And when you say for future use, can you elaborate on that? Is that something that you would use in this? Would you use those funds in the same way?
A rare exception, and the reason why I think we put this in the first happenstance, as it were, is we manage a week-long celebration of innovation, and we had it all lined up and always do it in the fall in person to showcase the city of Baltimore and its greatness. And a lot of people sponsor events for that or their own events. And because the world was shut down last fall, we decided to go virtual one day as opposed to 5 days. And so we had gotten a grant, for example, from the Department of Commerce, and it was a true grant. And so that money was just there. And so we put it in a separate account and held on to it and checked in with the Department of Commerce to make sure that they didn't want it back and that we would have it for future use. So that's sort of an example of, it's rare when that happens.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the only concern would just be that you, and obviously you would, but that you would just use it for the purpose for which it was initially
Absolutely, the
intended.
purpose of which it was intended.
Yeah, that's great.
And
Everything else looks great.
Okay.
And I can report that the ETC provided its final solicitation report from the last campaign, and everything looks satisfactory. They accounted for donations and expenditures.
Okay.
Okay.
Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Looks like Stefan is on mute.
Thank you, Deb.
You didn't see me smile, but it's there.
That's right. So no, if there are no other questions, then I will wait for a motion to approve this solicitation request.
Yeah, motion.
Second.
All right, and a second. All right, so all in favor of approving the solicitation request on behalf of BDC and Emerging Technology Centers signify by saying aye.
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 All right, great. Thank you very much for joining us today, Deb.
Thank you
Yep,
for having
thank
me.
you.
I really appreciate it, and we will wait for the signed approval letter.
Thank you. And see you
Thank
next
you.
year.
Okay,
Take care.
bye-bye.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, if we would like, we can stay in new business, or we can go straight back to the top of the docket and approve minutes. Is there any preference?
Go back to the beginning just to keep us straight.
All right. All right, that's fine. So we'll move now to the approval of the minutes for our April 14th meeting, the public meeting, that is. Are there any are there any modifications or any questions at all? They look pretty straightforward to me. I really appreciate. Mara, that's your work, right? Or is that Jeff's? It is yours. Okay.
So, light editing.
He edits. I
Team
did.
effort. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So no, they're always very professional, and it is nice because you have the benefit of the video. It's never, you have to remember what happened. So that's great. We appreciate it. I would move that we approve the April 14th, 2021 public minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Got a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. They are
So
approved.
let me just ask a technical question. Once we approve the minutes, why do we keep the video?
The approval of the written minutes isn't necessary once we have the video. So technically we could get rid of the video. I think that the idea was having both is very transparent, but we could technically get rid of the video because the video can stand in as minutes in lieu of written minutes. But for a member of the public who wants to look through, you know, what happened, it's a lot easier sometimes to get written minutes. But yeah, I mean, we don't have to do both.
What does everybody
Yeah,
else?
I mean,
I mean,
I know what I think. I feel pretty strongly on this, and that is that in the interest of transparency, and quite frankly, since we started posting our public hearings on YouTube, I think we should stick with that. So,
okay.
Is this something you think we'll continue to do once we start meeting in person, or if we even do that?
Oh.
That's
Yeah,
a
I
tech
mean,
question.
Yeah, I mean, this format, the remote format certainly facilitates video recording. I don't know, that would have to be a board decision at the time, I think.
You'd have to get some equipment. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to, yeah, your budget.
Unless somebody wants to have a shaky cell phone recording of our
Yeah.
board meeting.
Well, I may have some equipment if we get that far. Once we get together again, we'll definitely figure that out.
Mm.
When will that day be? Director's update.
I have not been informed of such a day. The city is still requiring kind of draconian check-in measures at City Hall, and and they're just now getting around to asking about sort of preferences for remote work versus in person. So I think there's still a little while to go before we have any clear direction on that front.
Well, I understand, but I'm sorry to hear that, and I hope by the fall we're actually able to come see your office, Jeff, Mara. It's been a long time.
Be very nice, yeah.
What do you have for us as far as an update?
I'm going to let Mara run through the metrics today. So feel free, Mara.
All right, so we'll start with the ethics training. So we had an ethics training in April, and there were 109 attendees. That was our biggest ethics training, I believe, so far. And of all the records I found, that was the largest.
Was this a general group, or was this a specific department?
It was just general, so it was open to anyone. We posted on our website, so you register through our website, and then just people. It was actually a very diverse group from all different agencies. So it was a fun one. Jeff did an incredible job. So that was in April, and we're going to deploy, hopefully, our automated training soon, but we've been really backed up with financial disclosure stuff. So that's still in the books, but our next live training will be in June, and we have about 20 people so far signed up for that. So that is the ethics training front. So help desk was a busy month. So typically we have about 100 help desk requests per month. We were over 600 in April. And 500.
They're enforcing those forms now. They've taken the training and they're calling. That is phenomenal news.
Wow.
That is big. That's a big deal.
We were very busy. Over 500, about 550. So the majority of them were financial disclosures. So I know that Jeff and I both walked through a lot of forms over the phone, but
I was one of them.
I could have been, but you know what? I did it on the last day and Jeff was already hounding me. And I said, I'll bring it up in the meeting because it would auto-populate. And I'm pretty sure my form is not perfect.
That must be auto-populating from other things you've done based on your browser.
It is. That's a really common call. A lot of people, it'll auto-populate with other people's information, but because they're using like a shared computer, and it has to do with your internet. But yeah.
And then when I tried to like correct it, it gave me a hard time. So I was like, okay, just auto-populate. That's fine. If they have a problem, they'll call.
Well, we have a list.
Yes, they will.
To improve. So I'll add it to the list.
And major kudos for Mara and her exemplary customer service in these past few weeks. I mean, she's been on the phone a lot. I mean, let's keep in mind the majority of people who filled this out didn't need guidance, and that's good. I mean, the tutorials, the written instructions help, but those who do often needed quite a bit of help. So Mara was wonderful on that front. And
that just proves, I mean, if you incrementally improve the quality and the substance, that's the kind of response you would expect to see.
Yeah.
So, where were all those people when you were phoning out hard copy or not in the case,
exactly.
a lot of people. So that's very good news. So how many delinquencies are there?
So we still have about 400. So it's 412 people still haven't filed. We've notified everyone. So in the ethics law, there's criteria, or there's different deadlines for I would say consequences. So the first notice was after 5 days. So we've notified everyone, and it was we have 412 outstanding. There 2,676 people have filed, which I believe is still more than last year. So we're doing significantly better. And we will be notifying the agencies again tomorrow before the end of the week, or Friday, regarding all of their outstanding filers. We're trying to get those notices out as soon as possible. So
and the second notice, who does that go to?
Yeah, under the law, the 5-day notice we have to send to the filers themselves. It's not required under the law to send it to agent. Well, I'll back up. After 15 days late, we send it to the filers again and have to CC their agency director and the head of the Department of Human Resources.
Oh, good. Okay.
Supplementally, we are reaching out to the sort of ethics and HR liaison contacts we've made at the agencies to let them know as well who the outstanding filers is, so they can also demand it. I mean, I think it's good to keep in mind, we're at this point around 85% of the nearly 3,000 required filers have filed, which for a new system and where we've come from, I think is a great accomplishment.
I do too.
Absolutely.
And it's just like the vaccine. It's that last 15% is going to get you. All right, but be prepared, for your plan of action on those last, let's say, 10 hardcore non-responding people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say a significant amount of people have called me and said, I've never filed before. Why am I required to do this? And they are required under law. There's just been no notices or anything.
I understand.
So I've gone through the law with a lot of people and they've filed. So I think that is a drastic improvement. So people are very, I would say, concerned when they get the notice, but a lot of them are now completing their form. So that's good.
That's fantastic.
Yes. So that's the financial disclosure front. Regarding the other areas, we had 9 requests from lobbyists. Those are typically we have that many a month. 4 requests about gift solicitations, 24 ethics inquiries, actually maybe slightly more. We just haven't tracked a couple of them. So I would say about 30 ethics inquiries and 3 requests that were just administrative, people asking about forms or deadlines. And then the last front is gift solicitations. Oh, I'm sorry. Additional ethics requirements. That has to do with conflicts affidavits and notice of ethics requirements. We've received a lot of these forms this last month because City Council sent over their whole office, so all of their conflicts affidavits and notice of ethics requirements. And then the police department also sent over a lot of ethics requirements. So we have about 49 conflicts affidavits and 54 ethics notices that we received this month.
Wow.
So that was a great improvement. And then gift solicitation reports, 1 campaign filed their final report. That is that ETC, they updated their final report. We received 2 interim reports and then the 2 applications. And we just heard about the BDC ETC one, and there's 1 more on our agenda. And now those are all the metrics for April.
That's great.
Thanks.
Very, very busy month. Thank you both.
It's a long month.
Maybe it was the cover of Baltimore Magazine and all the newscasts about ethics and conflicts and gifts and back and forth.
It's certainly on the radar internally and externally in a way that I actually think is very positive development. So.
I agree, 100%. Any other updates from your office, Jeff or Mara?
I think that takes care of the director's corner.
All right. Do we have any old business? We usually we usually clean the place after we use it. So, all right. Then we'll move back into new business.
Old business, excuse me, I'm sorry. Sure. Old business is, do we have any movement on the additional board member?
Radio silence. Not entirely sure what the prospects are there.
Well, it's squeaky wheel gets the oil. Somebody's got to pluck somebody. Pluck. The word was pluck. I shouldn't use that word on recordings, but remind somebody that it's still out there.
Yeah, I get the sense that there's a lot of board memberships and nominations going through with the new administration. So it's probably part of that shuffle, but I agree, we can reach back out.
All right. We'll move into new business. Councilman Zeke Cohen's public policy fellowship. And you may remember his office is no stranger to fellowship requests. So it's in line with the rest. Anybody have any comments or discussions about the fellow request?
Mm-mm.
Like I said, this is I think his fourth time at it, perhaps fifth time at it in the last 5 years with various public policy fellowships. I think Jim Kraft was the first person to start this in Baltimore city government. You guys have any history on that, Jeff? Or
I'm not sure about who started it. I know the Lee Public Policy Fellow has been funded in the past, and I think it was through Councilmember Cohen's office.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I should say I like seeing it done this way, potentially, as opposed to after the fact. If we hear like, oh, we have a fellow and this other private entity wants to help fund them, it's like, well, you know, we should potentially vet that in advance. So this would seem to be the appropriate way to do that.
Yes, and like I say, it's not a case of first impression. So any other discussion on that request? All right.
Thought it was very fulsome. Well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would move to approve the LEE Public Policy Fellowship for 2021-22 solicitation request.
Yep. Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. The request is approved. The next one on new business is a little bit of a case of first impression for me. Baltimore City Recs and Park land donation for the Hilton Rec Center.
Mhm.
Discussion.
I don't really know I don't know the role we play in this. So
Yeah, and I apologize if that wasn't immediately clear in the memo. So to make the very long story short, this isn't the typical gift solicitation
Right.
waiver, because it's a direct request. In this case, it happens to be for a donation of land, and the landowner currently is somebody who might be considered a controlled donor. So the ethics board, as far as the plain language of the ethics law is concerned, the board can, as long as the solicitation is for the benefit of an official governmental program or activity, the board can either expressly allow it by a rule or regulation, which is where the current solicitation waivers come in, or otherwise approve it in advance on the written request of the public servant and his or her agency. So that is the category of authority where I think we are now. This is a one-off request for to allow a specific solicitation to a potentially controlled donor for a piece of land to expand the Hilton Rec Center.
okay.
And I've had, you know, I was included on some initial meetings with Director Moore and the law department and the real estate division. So, you know, they looped ethics in because they just wanted, you know, they wanted to get your input on this. And we did the investigation to realize Potts and Callahan, who is the landowner, could be considered a controlled donor. So wanted to realize we needed the clearance of the ethics board if this donation was going to take place.
Okay, so what's the form of the approval? A memo?
I think it would be a letter of approval that lays it out and lays out any potential restrictions or stipulations. And I put a couple of those in the memo.
4. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, part 4 especially. I think just as with the gift solicitation waiver process more broadly, if the board decided to approve this, you could make sure that any written request makes clear to the donor that, there's not going to be any favored treatment or special access that this grants, that it's going to be done through other city the regular city channels for acquiring real estate, et cetera. And then they would need to provide a report to the board, detailing that solicitation effort, basically after that.
And then one last thing. This is the one you attach the purchase order paperwork, right?
Right. That was just to show that they could be a controlled donor. Yeah.
Okay. Because I didn't really grasp that.
Yeah. That was the only reason there.
Okay.
Oh, and just so anybody who may be watching this or whatever wants to understand what our conditions or any concerns are, I think it would behoove us just to lay those out. The four standards the four conditions that you had come up with. The first one being that it's this donations for the exclusive benefit of a governmental program. Second is that it will comply with all other relevant city policies and approval requirements. And then the express written communication, thanking them for the donation, but reminding them that it doesn't result in any favored treatment. And then a follow-up report within 6 months detailing the solicitation efforts and the outcome.
Yep. Good.
Melody?
I thought this was really well done, Jeff. I thought it makes a lot of sense. The four elements that you proffered. The only thing that I have a concern about, or just a question about, really is, okay, so the number 3, where it says, as part of this, PNC and any other potential donors will be expressly informed that any donation will not result in special access for favored treatment. So, I mean, I like that that's in there. How do we ensure that that happens? And more importantly, I think, is the appearance of, well, this PNC gave the city land, now they're getting all these contracts. It's the appearance, really, that I think the merits of what's happening are great, but that aside, how do we prevent the appearance of PNC getting additional work from the city because they donated land?
Well, it's a good question. Presumably, they would still need to go through the regular procurement process to get any city contracts. And I'm not sure of a way to 100% quell that potential appearance. I mean, as with any solicitation effort, trying to make clear in advance that it doesn't give special treatment. That, I mean, maybe we could spell out as part of part 3, or as another stipulation, any awards, any future city business between the city and PNC, will solely be done through the official procurement channels.
Yeah.
Something like, I mean, did you have any suggestions?
I mean, look, I'm just, no. Don't you love people who are like, I don't like this part, but I have nothing to add. I just wanted to raise it because, I'm not sure there's anything that we can do about it, but it just stuck out to me. And again, I'm not looking for things to thwart this, because I think I think we should be, prophylactic the way that you laid it out. But I just, I guess it's our job to think about what could happen in the future. And that's all. I just want to make sure there's not a future allegation that PNC got work from the city, but look, they just right after they donated land or something in that regard.
I think the only thing that we can do about that is make sure that procurement and acquisition follows the processes and stands on its own. I mean, that's a good point. I wish we had control over that. We don't. Nope, we don't.
This is just a trusting process that procurement will, we'll follow the right process, I guess.
Well, it's a trusted process, but it's also a controlled process because it's audited. So we have to rely on the process being followed and the audits catching anything that's an anomaly. That's all we can do.
Yeah, and we could provide slightly additional language to that effect, that the ethics board grants this with the understanding and requirement that any future awards to PNC go through objective procurement.
But that goes without saying.
Right. But if we wanted to just make it clear for appearance purposes, but I agree, we can't control then what happens on the procurement side, but we never have been able to.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
imperfect.
I think in your next life, Melody, you should be a really good auditor.
Oh God.
Because no, really, you would be a great auditor. I think you would. It's a wonderful job.
Don't do it, man.
Don't worry.
No, because you're always bringing up those points, which is absolutely, vital.
Well,
but I don't want to add too much language or make it sound like we're putting more burden on.
I agree,
PNC.
and I agree, and I think too, we don't want to discourage entities from donating for the greater good. So we don't want to penalize them for doing something that's helpful. But I do, anyway, it's just something I raised. Clearly, Jeff thought it through really well with these 4 elements. I don't have any objection to any of it. I just thought it was something that maybe we could just sort of think about here or later, but I don't want to hold up the process. So.
All right. So any other thoughts on this matter before we bring it to a vote? Sounds good. All right. Move that we approve the solicitation request for the Baltimore City Recs at Park for land donation for Hilton Recreation Center with the 4 conditions that were laid out in the correspondence by Mr. Hochstetter. Second?
Second.
All right. All in favor of approving the Recs and Park land donation request signify by saying aye.
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 And back to Melody's discussion, this is why in my former life, and I've talked to Jeff about this before, we had a compliance or self-governance committee that only met quarterly, and these are the kind of things they would discuss just so they validated each other's processes. And it consisted of HR, like you mentioned earlier, you have your HR liaisons out there helping on your certification, audit, because there are certain things that come across ethics and the law department that you say, hey, you know what? This needs to be added to the audit list, or this needs to be audited more frequently, or here's something to add to the existing audit. Law department, ethics. For us, we had our quality mission assurance function, but it's the primary stakeholder functions that feed into the entire governance program. And that group leader is the one that reported to the board. Now, I know it's a little different in the public sector, but I still think that kind of sharing between the primary functions associated with compliance, ethics, and governance is absolutely critical. Because you're seeing things that impact or, affect each other and can add quality to the other's processes that especially the way we're working now, don't get conveyed necessarily. Anyway, that's that.
And yeah, and that I would also say is part of the work that we're doing over here is trying to cultivate some of those relationships. I mean, I have great contacts now in the law department and the comptroller's office, and a lot of us have the same goals of trying to figure out how to make these processes a little more centralized and integrated. And I'm not sure there was a lot of that work always going on in the past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that they certainly know that we are here and willing, and I try to provide feedback on things whenever I can.
Well, we'll put it in the future as a nice to have. to think about the key stakeholders, and finance, of course, was on our committee as well. But it would be nice to have a maybe an afternoon session with lunch with those top officials covering, okay, let's talk about generally what we've been seeing or doing in the area of ethics, compliance, and governance. So.
Yep.
Has nothing to do with us as a board. That's just my recommendation for the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Now we got to talk about the residency requirement evasion task force.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Now
You saw that.
see, you've got to, now that you've been enforcing those financial disclosures, they're going to get you
That's
involved in everything.
Well, yeah, luckily they got me the request for a bill report much sooner in advance than last time, which I think was the day before the hearing. I will note that hearing has been postponed, so I think I have no idea, why. I don't know if it was a result of this bill report or the one received from the law department, which was similarly negative, at least with regard to putting this in the ethics jurisdiction. But the hearing was postponed, so I'm not sure what, if any, action is going to now be taking place on that bill. But I did submit this bill report.
I can't
Right.
remember if you made a suggestion of where it does belong. Is this an HR function?
I was trying not to.
I don't think you did, but
try
that's
not to
okay.
overstep,
But just
yes.
between us, is this an HR function?
It's always between us on YouTube.
Right.
I always love that. Wait a minute. Go ahead.
I don't want to comment on the merits of any of it, but it does strike me that it would be something akin to an HR HR type of function.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, what they used to call in Congress, an unfunded mandate. It's sort of like, here, you do this, even
Right.
though the legal structure of our entity is not even necessarily set up to enable us to do it. So
And
now, if it came through the phone system or the computer
IG
system, what would you do with it then, Jeff? Would you keep it in-house or would you send it over somewhere else?
we'd probably send it over to HR to see if there was anything that they could do with it. I mean, I think there are a lot of potential mandates in city legislation that don't have clear enforcement functions. So, and that's often where the gray area lies. So I think I understand why this bill exists. I just thought the ethics board would be a handy body to like try to go police
Hand it off.
this, but it just doesn't make sense. Sort of like,
Well, it's a
sort of
good
like
place to, if there's a problem, to get it into the record. Okay, you're in the
Right.
record, we're handing it off and it's getting addressed, but not for day-to-day operational enforcement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
but
I mean, we always try to find if there's an appropriate entity if we get a complaint that's not relevant to us.
But I'm not sure that the question of whether or not even evasion of the residency requirement is still technically an ethics matter.
No.
It's definitely an HR matter. We agree with that. But, right.
Right.
So.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. But interesting ideas always. And that's
Well,
what democracy's all
the
about.
bigger issue is the purposeful restructuring or reorging to circumvent the rule. That's a bigger problem. So, yeah.
All right. So, are we ready to go to the administrative session?
Let me make sure.
I move we go to administrative session.
She's ready. All right. We're going to go ahead and is there a second?
Yep. Second.
All right. All in favor of moving to the administrative session, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all.